Right, old camera live stream again. Different camera. This one's a lot more useful and easier to use. But first, I will go through my father's light meter. Cute little plastic case. It's got a doodacky in here so that you can attach a chain or a lanyard or something and have it come out the bottom in there. So you can hang it around your neck and then just pull it out of the case. Pull it out of it. Oh, that's right, I keep forgetting. I deliberately made sure it stayed screwed into the case. Never mind. But anyway, now it's got some dials on it. I won't go through using this because, yeah, it's a bit fiddly to use. But once you got the hang of it, it's not too bad. It is actually quite handy if you turn up somewhere with even a current day camera and you just want an idea of what the light is like, because where admittedly its shutter speed is limited to 1/1000th of a second, and you've got on here ASA, which is a film speed, with a bit of, I don't know, with a bit of work you can actually I suppose you can do a bit of maths to equate it to current lighting conditions if they're greater than this. So if it yeah, doesn't take a lot of maths, but it's got a little door on it that keeps it, the sensor covered for you, which is quite handy. But yeah, I find it very useful when using any one of these older cameras, just because the only other way I've got of sorting out the lighting is by using the modern camera and using the light meter inside that, which admittedly is often faster but a little bit less fun. But anyway, the camera, again, case, leather case in perfect condition. Now the camera actually screws into the case, and that thread there will actually go onto a tripod, so you can put it, open up and actually put that direct onto the tripod like that if you really want to. But I don't normally, and so I'll unscrew it because that screws into the tripod thread in the bottom. Hey presto, it's a Agfa, I can't remember what it actually is, to be honest. I can't remember, it's an Agfa anyway. But it's got really nice, I think it's 45mm lens. And this, I think, was made in 1955, I think, 55, 60, somewhere in there. And I've seen a couple of different versions of it. It's a rangefinder, hence the two windows. I've seen a couple of different versions of this camera, which are quite interesting. The differences aren't overly great. It's got a knob on the side here to set it to ordinary, or for using a flash, because there is a flash that'll slide in the top here and it plugs in down there. Right. It's also got a bulb mode. the weird thing is you can only put it in bulb mode if you've wound on the film. What did I have that left set on? Now, it's quite interesting. Put my phone on silent. Never mind. It's got. Hang on, I'll just put that on silent in case someone sends another message. There. This is your focus ring here, which for anyone who's used a rangefinder will understand how the focusing of the rangefinder works. That's pretty straightforward. Effectively, you've got two versions of the picture that slide across each other. And the cool thing with this is if you don't want to see the part in the middle, it's got a piece in the middle that shows you when the two pictures are properly overlapped, because you'll see effectively two pictures slide together until you can only see one, and then you know it's in focus. But if you don't want to see that straight away while you're lining up your shot or whatever, you just cover one of these and you're just then looking through one. But so that is your focus ring. This maximum shutter speed on this camera is 1/500th of a second, and on the top here, the front dial here is effectively the one that does the shutter speed, but it's actually attached to your f-stop. So what you would normally do is, because there's no sensor or anything to work with here, you can't look to see if your exposure is correct. So you would normally pick your f-stop, we'll say f5.6. Turn around that way, f5.6. You do that by pulling that little lever there in and rotating that till the arrow on the top is set to your f-stop. That has then got your shutter speeds linked to that. If, for instance, you know that for 5.6 it should be 125th of a second, you would grab that little knob there and turn it till the 5.6 and the 125 line up, which for ease you'd put near the little pointer. So I don't know whether you can see that clearly enough there, but 5.6 and 125 are lined up. The cool thing with that is that, which would be handy on a digital camera, is the fact that those two are now linked. So as I turn this front dial, it is turning both those together. So if I decide, oh no, I want to shoot at 2/50th of a second, as I turn that to 2/50th, it's bringing the f-stop around at the same time to f4. So effectively, or it's actually just a bit over f4, effectively it's adjusting as I adjust the f-stop, or it's dragging the appropriate shutter speed with it. But yeah, so it takes a bit of fiddling to to use. It's also got your f-stops marked on here, on there, because right on the front, which would be hard to see, is distance in feet. So if you know how far away something is, you don't even need to use the rangefinder function of this. You can go, oh yeah, I know the subject's 15 feet away, set that to 15 feet. And then if you look at, say I'm set at f8, I can look around that ring there till I find f8, and it'll tell me that for this camera at f8, at 15 feet, anything between 8 feet and about 30 feet away is going to be in focus. And she's a nice little camera. Takes your standard 35mm film. In perfect working order. Does a brilliant job of taking photographs. She's a little bit fiddly with setting up, because there's a few things that don't match the current films. Like you can set your film type and everything here using this, and you have to zero out your number of frames here. Takes a bit of fiddling around. Once you loaded the film in and you got that first frame wound on, you then press down and rotate that around to get that positioned for your first frame. So it's sitting on number 1. Turn it back around, leave it sitting close enough to 1. That way you can keep track of your number of frames. And the other thing is, in the top there, you can screw in a remote, well, sort of remote trigger. It's a cable release trigger, which is really handy if you're doing slow shutter speeds on a tripod and you don't want to physically touch the camera. That's quite a good way of doing it. And I do have Dad's flash that sits in the top of here and plugs into here. I haven't played with it, because using that flash on this camera, when you're used to using a modern flash on a modern camera, is a wee bit of a mission. It's not the easiest thing in the world to use. It takes a bit of getting used to, but it comes with a complete chart. It comes with a complete chart that tells you things like different distances for different settings and all that sort of carry on, which is quite handy. Most of which applies to current speed lights, if you know how to adapt it a bit. But most current speed lights, you don't need that sort of carry on. It is handy if you know off the top of your head how much light you're going to get at any distance without having to use a light meter. I found for a lot of my speed light work, most of the time I can pretty much estimate it reasonably well. It's something that's just slightly better than guesswork, and then test it and go, oh yeah, that's about right. But she's a good little camera and still in perfect order, and the case is not banged about or anything like that. So what I do is I'm using up some old rolls of black and white colour film at the moment, and once I've done that, I'll probably only put black and white film through it. It's a little bit more forgiving than colour, but it does some really good photographs. I am always looking for really old rolls of 35mm film to put through it, because I quite like the look of older expired rolls of film. I got some photographs a while back with a roll of film that was 12 or 15 years old, something like that. And the older the film, and that, so long as it still works and will still go through the camera, it's quite interesting, an interesting look to shoot old expired film that the chemicals may have aged a bit, etc., but is processed at normal 35mm processing setup, and see the effect that has on the processing and the sort of image you get. It can be quite interesting. Get some funky colours sometimes and slight odd colour casts and things like that. But yeah, I've taken that out a few times. Once we're over all our lockdowns and other rubbish, I will probably take it out again on a walk somewhere, maybe around the lake. Maybe a friend and I do a couple of trips away somewhere. I have been thinking about working out how I can use it to take photographs at hockey, but because of the focus system and its focal length, it's not really a lot of use at hockey as such. But I have been thinking of next time I do some hockey, I might look at my camera at about the same focal length and just see what I could possibly get. Be very wide angle because it's 45mm, so it'd be quite wide, so all the players would look quite small. But I might look at the idea of possibly taking my tripod along, maybe setting it up with the camera looking through some of the mesh on the side at some point, or in where I normally shoot, set it up so that it's all focused for a given point. When the players come within a certain distance, just fire off a shot. I'll see, because most of the time for hockey, 1/500th of a second is a little bit slow, considering most of my hockey shots are taken at 1,000th of a second. But we'll see how it goes. But if there's a day when there's enough room and not enough time, I might take a few close-up portraits and stuff with it of players if there's time after a match or whatever. But I'll see what I can do. But yeah, so that's another old camera. Not sure if I'll do another one of these yet. Once we're back out of lockdown to something that's vaguely usable, I might go into the camera shop and see if I can do a couple of live streams of some old cameras out of their little museum. They've got some quite interesting ones there. Might even do them with the guy in the camera shop to explain some of the cameras. That should be interesting. But yeah, we'll see how it goes.